What's up, Roll Tide, everybody? Alabama basketball is 2-0, and I'd like to welcome you into our first episode of Catfish Courtside. That's right. Alabama basketball has now invaded the channel, and we're going to be dropping content multiple times a week following Alabama basketball games throughout the entire course of the season, and hopefully a nice little run, at least into late March. I think we'll all be maybe disappointed if we're not still doing these shows in April as the Crimson Tide tries to go back-to-back to the Final Four. I'm Chad Anderson. I am the Catfish, if you have been watching the Bama Tailgate Show, which I hope you did. So it's coming up actually on the radio later on today, and recorded yesterday with Mick and Jake Coker down at the Floribama. So let's also tell you about our friends at Pearl River Resort. Pearl River Resort, you can't beat it. They've got the golf courses. They've got the casinos. They got the buffets. They got the restaurants. They got everything going on over there. And the sports betting, of course, where you can lay some coin, obviously on football, because that's what most of us do. But don't forget basketball season. You don't have to wait until March Madness to get in on the brackets and the gambling and the bets and all those great things. You can do it a lot of times early in the season is some of the best times to actually grab some of those good lines. But check them out at Pearl River Resort. Just hour and a half, hour 45 from Tuscaloosa. Great spot, great everything. Make sure you check those guys out. All right, so last night, Crimson Tide ends up beating Arkansas State by a final tally of 88-79. It wasn't as dominant, I would say, as the UNC Asheville game. Alabama came out on Monday night, absolutely smoked Asheville, beat them 110-54. What went wrong last night? And I say wrong only because the victory wasn't as impressive as the UNC Asheville matchup. So here are a few things. One, Alabama was pretty cold from the three-point arc. So Bama wins this game 88-79. But if you go back and look, they only shot 19% from beyond the arc, 6 of 31. Mark Sears actually went 0 for 5 from beyond the arc, even though he was Alabama's leading scorer with 19 points. So Crimson Tide struggling on the shooting and still able to pull away with a 9-point victory. However, that doesn't mean that Arkansas State didn't give them everything that they wanted and some, because Arkansas State last night, they were within 2 in the second half, and they had even tied it at one point. And you're kind of thinking, man, am I going to be one of John Rothstein's a bye game is the epitome of brutality, because that was the track that Alabama was on. On the fouls, 24 personal fouls committed, and for Arkansas State, it was 28. A lot of those actually came into play early on in the first half. Alabama was in the bonus last night, just 5.5 minutes into the game. Believe that or not, Alabama was literally shooting 1-1 last night, and it was only 5.5 minutes into that game. They shot 28 of 44. Not a great night from the charity stripe, 63%. The Red Bulls, kind of the same. They only had 8 fewer free throw attempts, caught up to the Tide in that department, 23 of 36 in last night's contest. So Crimson Tide now moving to 2-0. Another thing that went last night, and we'll call this, hey, a win's a win. You know, it's one of those things, you're going to play 35-ish games across the course of the season, depending on how deep you go into a tournament. But a win's a win. And when you're facing your old assistant coach, which Alabama was doing with Brian Hodgson, who was an assistant under Nate Oats at Buffalo, he was also an assistant with the Crimson Tide from 2019 through 2023. And when you're doing that, this guy knows exactly how you play. He was pushing his team up and down the floor. It was a battle. I mean, it was almost like a fight in an airplane. It was a battle last night. A lot of physicality, a lot of tempo, a lot of pushing the pace up and down. And so Hodgson knows how to play against Nate Oats, and that's an advantage. Other people can obviously watch film. They can get an idea of how Alabama does it. But when you're actually in the trenches every single day as an assistant for that many years, it's going to be an advantage for you when you're facing your mentor. So credit to Brian Hodgson. He's doing good things with Arkansas State, played the number 2 team in the nation on the road very competitively last night. And it really wasn't until the end that Alabama started to actually pull away and end up winning, not even by double digits, but by 9. So what's on deck for the Crimson Tide? Well, coming up in just a couple of nights, Bama's going to host McNeese State Now, before you just roll your eyes because Purdue is on deck, Purdue on a Friday night in West Lafayette. Right now, they're ranked number 14 in the country in the polls. But, preseason polls kind of, who knows how good they actually are. All we know is they're good even without Zach Edey. So McNeese State coming up on Monday, though, got to be careful for the look ahead. And the reason you don't want to roll your eyes at McNeese State, if you weren't aware, the head coach for McNeese State is actually Will Wade. And if you remember who Will Wade was or is, former LSU basketball coach who made some damn good offers to recruits, her strong ass offers, I think was the better way that he put it. So Will Wade, who ended up getting in trouble with the NCAA, getting let go from LSU, landed at McNeese State after a couple of years and has already started building that program back. And a guy like Will Wade going to those small conference basketball schools, basketball is one of those things. It's not like football. It's not like when Alabama goes up and will play Mercer next weekend that you're ever worried about Mercer. No Citadel comments, please. But nothing to worry about against Mercer. Basketball is so different because all it takes is one or two of those really good players be on the floor and pose some threats and some problems for your team. And Will Wade, who is a fantastic coach. If you want a good example, think about Alabama when they faced this one, the first one that comes to mind, Rick Pitino and Iona. Iona, tough team because Rick Pitino is so good. It's not that Iona is a powerhouse and Rick Pitino has moved on to St. John's, but Rick Pitino was a problem for Alabama. Beat Alabama. Lost in the NCAA tournament, but beat them. So in the regular season in one of those tournaments. So you got to be prepared for games like this. It can be tricky. It can be a little bit of a trap, and especially when you got a team like Purdue who is sitting on deck. Another thing, Alabama, they're going to have to make a home away from home because the Crimson Tide doesn't return back to Coleman Coliseum after Monday night until December the 14th. Bama's they're going to be road warriors. They go to Purdue. They go and play a neutral site game. We know it's a home game, but it's not in Coleman. It's in Birmingham against Illinois before heading on the road to Vegas to take on teams like Houston and Rutgers and so forth. They go to Chapel Hill and play North Carolina. They got some really difficult games upcoming and all going to be away from the actual on-campus venue. So we'll see what happens and how well they mature over that time. It's Monday night going to be the last time for, what is that, about 33 days or so. So we'll see what the Crimson Tide can do there. Purdue coming up, that's what we mentioned. That'll be the one that we really focus on our next show, which we'll drop that, just FYI. If a game is like on Monday night, we'll have the show for you on Tuesday morning. If it's Friday night, we'll have it for you on Saturday morning and so forth. Will be the plan here. But Purdue, that's going to be the real test because this is a team of can Alabama live up to the hype? Can this team, who had never been to the Final Four in the history of Alabama basketball, had some chances, had some really good teams under Wimp Sanderson, had the Elite Eight run under Mark Gottfried, had some amazing teams under Nate Oats, and never could get all the way through. Made it to the Sweet 16 a couple of times, but last year finally broke through. So Alabama has started to establish itself as a basketball program across the nation that people worry about. But if you step back and look, when the expectations are this high, remember, Bama was the number one overall seed, got to the Sweet 16, ran into San Diego State, who that tournament became a buzzsaw, went to the national championship game against UConn. But can this Alabama team, expectations are completely different. When you're one of those, it's like, oh, you're a top 15 team, you're preseason top 3 in the SEC. Everybody looks at you as you're dangerous, but nobody looks at you like you're Kansas. Nobody looks at you like you're Duke. Nobody looks at you like you're North Carolina. And while Alabama won't have in other people's eyes, and rightfully so, while they won't have the prestige and the tradition and the trophy cases that those other blue bloods carry, Alabama now has to fit in with them because people are looking at them as that team should be there. That team should do this, even Nate Oats has not shied away from the fact that this team is set up to make a run and, dare we say it, potentially put Alabama's first ever national championship basketball trophy inside the case. So lots to come. It's going to be a fun season. I'm really excited about it. Mick will be on here and there, as well as we expand and provide all kinds of content for you. But Alabama basketball off to a good start. They're 2-0, and the Crimson Tide looking to make it 3 straight with McNeese State coming in on Monday night in Coleman. Let me tell you also about my business. I sponsor myself here. You can visit me at chad@chadwickanderson.com. That's my email. Website is chadwickanderson.com. I've been doing mortgages for 14 years. My family's been in the real estate my entire life. We help people with purchasing. We help people with refinancing. We save people money. We also don't just go through the loan process and say, oh, here's your rate, here's your cost, what do you think? We actually develop strategies. We can help you with taxes, with real estate investment. We can do some different things with the tax code. We can help you with some investing. We got all kinds of different avenues that we can help you and do more than just a simple mortgage. We want to actually put you in a better financial position and help set you up for building wealth or using your wealth to the maximum of our ability. So reach out. That's my handle as well on the socials, @MortgageDadChad. Phone number there. Another phone number is 256-509-8200. Email, text, visit the website. Would love to hear from you. Hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. Thanks for joining on the first episode of Catfish Courtside, and Roll Tide.